On the 17th of August, 2026, a bank licensed by the Monetary Authority of Singapore announced a credit card and called it the highest unlimited cashback credit card in Singapore. The headline number was 10%. Now read the same company's own footnote printed on the same page as that number. The thing it pays you is not cash, it has no cash value, it cannot be exchanged for currency, and under the terms of the company that issues it, it expires 6 months after you earn it. Then read the binding rewards terms, and you find something sharper still. At the exact level of spending that GXS bank's own published table labels 10%, a cardholder does not earn 10, they earn 4. Not 4 in some pessimistic edge case. 4 at the threshold derived from the arithmetic in the bank's own contract. Here is my thesis. The GXS credit card is a case study in how a rewards program can be almost entirely truthful in its documents and badly misleading in its headline, and the mechanism is not a lie anywhere. It is one word, cashback, doing work in the marketing that the contract will not let it do. I am an independent analyst. I have no relationship with GXS Bank, with Grab, with Singtel, or with any bank named in this video. Every figure here I retrieved from the program's own pages on the 21st of August, 2026. These pages change without notice, and this is analysis, not financial or purchasing advice. Let's do the arithmetic. Chapter 1: What was announced? GXS Bank is a digital bank in Singapore. It holds a full banking license from the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and by its own description in the launch release, it is owned by a consortium consisting of Grab Holdings and Singtel, a ride-hailing and delivery super app, and a telecommunications group. Remember those two owners. Everything in this video eventually returns to them. On the 17th of August, the bank issued a press release. The headline read, "The GXS credit card is Singapore's highest unlimited cashback credit card and one of the best for Grab and Singtel customers." The body of that release makes 4 promises. 1. Customers can earn up to 10% instant cashback in GrabCoins on all Grab spending, with higher rates unlocked as monthly Grab spending increases. 2. 1.75% unlimited cashback on Singtel bills, with no minimum spend and no cap. 3. 1.75% unlimited cashback on all other eligible local spending, subject to a minimum monthly spend of $500, again with no cap. 4. No foreign exchange fees on all overseas spend. The release then prints a table. The column heading is, and I am quoting it exactly, cashback rate and type. One row reads, local Grab spends from $1,000 onwards, 10% back in GrabCoins. That table is the single most important artifact in this story, and I want to be precise about why. It is not false. Every number in it appears somewhere in the binding terms. The tiers are real. The percentages are real. The word cashback is used, by my count, more than 20 times across that announcement. And yet a person who reads that table and reasonably concludes that spending $1,000 a month on Grab returns them $100 will be wrong by 60%. The gap between that table and the contract is not created by a false statement. It is created by 2 omissions and 1 definition, and all 3 are documented in writing by the bank itself. The omissions are how the tiers actually apply and what the $500 minimum actually does. The definition is what a GrabCoin actually is. Take those 3 apart and you have the whole story. Let's start with the arithmetic, because the arithmetic is the part you can check yourself in about 4 minutes. Chapter 2: The 10 that is 4. The GXS credit card pays rewards on local Grab spending in 3 tiers. 3% with no minimum at all. 5% once you have charged $500 of Grab spending in a billing cycle and separately met a $500 minimum off Grab. And 10% once your Grab spending in that cycle reaches $1,000. Again, with the $500 off Grab minimum met. Read as a normal person reads it. That says, spend $1,000 on Grab this month, get 10% of it back, $100. Now here is clause 4.2.2 of the binding rewards terms, quoted exactly. You will automatically become eligible for the next GrabCoins reward tier from, and including the first transaction after you meet the minimum Grab spend of a tier. From and including the first transaction after. The higher rate is not retroactive. It does not reach back and reprice the spending that got you there. It applies only going forward to whatever you spend once you have already crossed the line. So run the money through it properly. Your first $500 of Grab spending earns 3%, that is $15. The next 500 earns 5%, that is $25. You have now spent $1,000 and you have earned $40. Only from your next transaction does the 10% rate begin. $40, not $100. At the precise threshold the bank's own published table labels 10%, the blended rate a cardholder actually receives is 4%. And it gets stranger the further you follow it. The general formula is simple. Once your Grab spending passes $1,000, the value you have earned is 10% of your total, minus a fixed $60, which means the blended rate is 10% minus $60 divided by your spending. 60 divided by your spending never reaches zero, so the blended rate never reaches 10%, it approaches it and never arrives. Let me put numbers on that curve. Spend $1,500 on Grab in 1 month and you earn $90, a blended 6%. $2,000 earns 147%. $3,000 earns 248%. To average even 9%, you must charge $6,000 of Grab rides, food delivery and groceries to this card in a single billing cycle. $6,000 in 1 month on a ride-hailing app. I want to be scrupulous here because this is the load-bearing claim in the video. The 3 tiers are disclosed. The percentages are disclosed. The non-retroactivity is disclosed in clause 4.2.2 of the rewards terms and nowhere else I could find. It is not in the press release table. It is not in the product page's own frequently asked questions, which instead say the earn rate is tiered based on your total spend in a monthly billing cycle. Total spend. That phrasing points a reader in exactly the wrong direction. One clause buried in the contract is the difference between $100 and $40. Chapter 3 No Cash Value. Suppose you accept all of that. Suppose you are a heavy Grab user, you clear $6,000 a month, and you genuinely earn a blended 9%. What exactly have you earned? Not cashback, GrabCoins. Here is the footnote GXS prints directly beneath its own cashback calculator, quoted exactly. Cashback is awarded as GrabCoins on Grab spend, part of Grab's loyalty program, not a digital payment token, e-money, or legal tender. GrabCoins have no cash value, are non-refundable, and cannot be exchanged for currency. Read that sentence again and notice what it does. It opens with the word cashback and closes by saying the thing has no cash value. Both halves are on the same page in the same footnote and both are true. The valuation is Grab's, not the bank's. Grab's own published answer on Grab's own GrabCoins page is this: for ease of conversion, 1 Singapore dollar equals 500 GrabCoins. So a coin is worth 0.2 of a cent at a rate Grab sets. And the bank's rewards terms are explicit that this is not their rate to guarantee. Clause 4.1 says the reward is calculated by taking a percentage of your transaction and then converting that amount into GrabCoins at Grab's prevailing rate. Prevailing, whatever it happens to be on the day. Now the part that decides the whole question. Grab's Terms of Service, Section 21, governing its loyalty program, quoted exactly. The loyalty units accumulated by the member shall expire in the event the member does not utilize it within a 6-month timeframe from the date of issuance. In such an event, such rewards or loyalty units shall be automatically forfeited at the absolute discretion of Grab, and without notice to the member. 6 months automatically forfeited without notice. The same section reserves to Grab the right, without prior notice and at its sole discretion, to revoke, adjust and recalculate any loyalty units already awarded, to change the number of units required for a redemption. And I am not embellishing this, to change the duration taken for loyalty units to expire. So the quantity can be recalculated, the price of everything you might buy with them can be changed, and the clock you are racing can be moved. All by a party that is not your bank. Which brings us to the clause that, for me, settles the argument. GXS Rewards Terms, Clause 7.2. The bank is not responsible for the terms and conditions of Grab or Singtel or any changes to those terms, and here is the phrase, even though such changes may affect the value of any reward available to you under these terms. The bank advertises 10% cashback, and in the contract governing that advertisement, the bank tells you in writing that it is not responsible for the value of what it just advertised. There is a version of this card where none of that matters much, and we will get to it because it is real. But the headline is doing something the footnote will not support. Chapter 4 2 Currencies 1 Document. I want to show you something that I think is the most quietly revealing detail in this whole story, and you do not need a lawyer to see it. You need one document, open at two adjacent sections. Grab's Terms of Service for Singapore, Section 21 and Section 22, one after the other. Section 21 governs GrabCoins. We have already read the expiry clause. Here is the sentence that defines what they are, quoted exactly. The loyalty units under the Grab loyalty program do not constitute currency, assets, property, any form of stored value or monetary value, and are not redeemable for cash in any form. Not currency, not assets, not property, not stored value, not monetary value. Now Section 22, the very next section. It is titled Safeguarding of Your Funds, and it governs GrabPay credits, the balance in the wallet. Quoted exactly. The company will safeguard any monies, including GrabPay credits, received on your behalf as relevant money, as defined in Section 23 of the Payment Services Act 2019. All relevant money will be held by the company on your behalf, in a separate trust account held with a safeguarding institution in Singapore. And beneath it, a regulatory notice. GPay Network Singapore Private Limited is licensed by the Monetary Authority of Singapore to provide e-money issuance services. So within a single terms document, Grab operates two units of account side by side. The first is e-money. It is issued by an entity licensed by the Monetary Authority of Singapore for exactly that purpose. It is safeguarded as relevant money under Section 23 of the Payment Services Act. It sits in a separate trust account. It carries a statutory regime built to make sure that if the issuer fails, your money is still yours. The second is a loyalty unit. It is defined in writing as not being stored value or monetary value. It has no safeguarding. It expires in 6 months. It can be recalculated, repriced, and reclocked at the issuer's sole discretion without notice. A licensed bank, owned in part by that same group, has built a credit card whose headline reward is paid in the second one. I want to be careful and fair here, because this is the point at which analysis can slide into accusation, and I am not making one. Loyalty points are not e-money in Singapore or anywhere else, and no rule I am aware of requires them to be. Airlines, hotels, and every bank on this island run points programs on exactly this basis. Grab's disclaimers are ordinary loyalty program disclaimers. Nothing here is irregular. The observation is narrower, and I think it survives that fairness. When a rebate is paid in cash, the consumer protection is arithmetic, a dollar is a dollar. When it is paid in e-money, the protection is statutory. The Payment Services Act says where the money must sit. When it is paid in loyalty units, there is no arithmetic protection and no statutory one. There is only the issuer's discretion and a 6-month clock. The word cashback carries the connotation of the first category. The contract places you firmly in the third. Chapter 5: The $500 Cliff. Set Grab aside completely. Suppose you want this card for the plain 1.75% on ordinary spending, the number that earns it the phrase highest unlimited cashback. Clause 3.1 says you get that rate once you charge at least $500 of eligible transactions in a billing cycle. Clause 3.2 says what happens if you do not, and it is worth quoting exactly. If you do not meet the minimum spend requirements during a monthly billing cycle, you will not receive base cashback for the monthly billing cycle, even if you had charged eligible cashback transactions on your GXS credit card. You will not receive base cashback, not a reduced rate, nothing. The bank's own frequently asked questions illustrate it with a worked example. A customer spends $400 in a billing cycle. Quote, they do not earn any cashback. So $499 of spending earns nothing at all, and $500 earns $8.75. That $500 carries the entire month. That is not a tapering rate. It is a cliff, and cliffs are how rewards programs quietly retain the value they advertise. Now the second half, which matters more because it is the half nobody reads. The rate applies to eligible transactions, and the rewards terms define that by excluding 22 numbered categories and roughly 40 merchant category codes. Among them, utilities, hospitals, schools and universities, tax payments, insurance premiums, charities, religious organizations, parking, tolls, every wallet top-up including GrabPay, Utrip, ShopeePay, and EasyLink, and a catch-all reserving the right to exclude any other categories from time to time without prior notice. And then the two exclusions that matter most, which I will read exactly. Any transaction denominated in a currency other than Singapore dollars. and any transaction processed overseas in Singapore dollars. Hold that against the marketing. This card is sold with no foreign exchange fees on all overseas spend on a page that says it is built to power your travels. Both are true, and the fee waiver is worth real money. But foreign currency spending earns no base cashback whatsoever. And because excluded transactions do not count toward the $500 minimum either, a month spent abroad can zero out the month. Concretely, charge $3,000 overseas and $400 at home in one billing cycle, and your base cashback for that cycle is nothing. Not a lower rate on the overseas portion, nothing on either. Then the annual fee, $196.20, including 9% goods and services tax, waived in the first year only for customers approved by the 31st of December, 2026. Divide that fee by 1.75%. You need $11,211 of eligible non-Grab Singapore dollars spending each year just to break even on the fee. About $934 every month in categories that qualify. And a person who hits exactly the $500 minimum every month all year earns $105 against a fee of $196.20. They are $91 down. One last clause, and it is a small one that tells you a great deal. Clause 3.10 says your cashback may offset future card debits but cannot be withdrawn as cash and cannot be used to offset fees. You cannot pay the annual fee with your cashback. Chapter 6 Beta on a credit line. There is a word on the GXS credit card product page I have not mentioned yet, and once you notice it, you cannot stop. Beta. The card carries a beta tag and its own separate contract, the GXS credit card beta launch terms and conditions. I will read from it because paraphrase would soften it and it does not deserve softening. Clause 2.1.1. The GXS credit card is in beta and is provided as is with respect to its performance, functionality, availability, use. Clause 2.1.2. The GXS credit card may not operate properly, be in final form or fully functional, and any of its functions or features may contain bugs, errors, design flaws, or other problems. Clause 2.1.4. You assume all risks and costs associated with signing up for and using the GXS credit card. Clause 2.1.5. The bank shall not be liable for any harm, damage, liabilities, claims, or loss arising, whether direct or indirectly, in connection with your use of the GXS credit card. That is software beta language. It is the language of an unreleased app. It is attached here to a revolving credit facility issued by a licensed bank. How long does beta last? Clause 1 answers that. The beta period runs for as long as a beta tag is displayed on the bank's app or website, which shall be determined by the bank in its discretion. It ends when they take the label off. There is no date. In Clause 3.1, the bank may add to, amend, modify, or vary any or all of these beta launch terms at any time without notice or liability to any person. Now put that beside what is not in beta. 29% per annum interest on unpaid balances, a $100 late fee, the annual fee of $196.20, and a consent printed on the same product page to GXS reporting to and conducting checks with Credit Bureau Singapore. None of those carry a disclaimer. None of them may contain design flaws. They are final, enforceable, and effective from the first statement. Meanwhile, on the reward side, look at what remains provisional. The calculator footnote says the everyday and Singtel cashback rates are indicative and subject to final confirmation. Clause 3.7 lets the bank vary both the cashback percentage and the minimum spend at its sole discretion. Clause 8.2 lets it, quote, at any time without giving any reason or notice, claw back, deduct, withdraw, or cancel any reward awarded to you. That is the asymmetry, and it is the real subject of this video. Every obligation running from the cardholder to the bank is fixed on day one. Every obligation running from the bank to the cardholder is indicative, discretionary, variable, and payable in a currency that expires. I am not alleging that any of this breaches a rule. I looked and I did not find one. Beta disclaimers are common in fintech, discretionary rewards clauses are industry standard, and every bank here reserves the right to vary its program. The question I would put to GXS is simply this. If a product is not in final form and may contain design flaws, and its rewards rates are subject to final confirmation. What exactly is the customer agreeing to when they sign? Chapter 7. What Nought.05 buys. The claim is that this is Singapore's highest unlimited cashback credit card. So let us test it against the card it has to beat, using that bank's own page, retrieved on the same day. The UOB Absolute Cashback Card, UOB's own words, highest limitless cashback rate in Singapore at 1.7%, no minimum spend. GXS pays 1.75, UOB pays 1.7. On base rates, GXS wins by 0.05 of a percentage point. The claim is defensible, and I want to say plainly that it is defensible, because being fair about the true part is what earns you the right to be sharp about the rest. Now, what does that 20th of a point cost? It costs the minimum spend. UOB's rate has none. Miss $500 in a month on the GXS card and you earn 0. There is no month in which the UOB card pays you 0. It costs the exclusions. UOB's page says 1.7% on all your purchases, and then, crucially this, 0.3% on local transactions which are commonly excluded from earning rewards. That is UOB's floor. It steps down, it does not step off. The same page presents insurance, utilities and telco bills, healthcare and travel bookings as things to put on the card. 4 categories GXS excludes outright, where GXS's rate is not 0.3. It is 0. It costs your overseas spending, which earns nothing at all on the GXS card outside Grab. And the annual fee is not the tiebreaker either, because it is identical. UOB's principal card fee on UOB's own page, $196.20 a year, the same number to the cent. There is one more detail, and it is the sort of thing that only turns up if you check the dates. In the small print at the bottom of the GXS credit card page is this line: market comparison and the 1.75% rate are accurate as of the 6th of August, 2026. The 6th of August, and what began on the 4th of August, UOB launched a promotion paying a bonus 0.3% on contactless spending on top of the 1.7 base, up to 2%. UOB's page states it explicitly: no minimum spend and no cap, valid from the 4th of August 2026 to the 31st of January 2027. I am going to be careful with this because it would be easy to overstate. GXS's claim is about base rates, and on base rates it holds. A promotional bonus is not a base rate and it ends in January. But a Singapore consumer standing in a shop today tapping a card is not choosing between base rates. They are choosing between 1.75% with a $500 monthly hurdle and a long exclusion list, and 2% with neither for the next 5 months. Highest is a comparative. It only means something once you say, highest at what, measured how, and on which day. Chapter 8. What would change my mind? I have spent 7 chapters on what this card's headline does not deliver. Fairness requires the other side, and there genuinely is one. The best thing about this card is buried where nobody put a headline: overseas Grab spending. 10% back in GrabCoins on every eligible Grab transaction made outside Singapore, with no minimum, no cap, and critically no tier ladder. Clause 4.3.1 sets it as a flat rate, so the asymptote problem from Chapter 2 simply does not apply. 10% overseas is 10% from the first dollar. Pair that with a genuine 0 foreign currency fee, and for somebody taking Grab rides across Southeast Asia, this is a strong product. Not a marketing artifact, a real one. The other honest credits, 1.75% is, as far as I can establish, the highest uncapped base rate published by a Singapore issuer as of the 21st of August. There is no cap on earnings. GrabCoins are credited instantly on the transaction. And the cashback on Singtel bill payments carries no minimum spend at all, which makes it the cleanest part of the local proposition. So here is my thesis, stated so it can be falsified. The headline claim of up to 10% cashback is misleading, not because any individual statement is false, but because the tier structure makes the advertised rate mathematically unreachable, and because the currency it is paid in is defined by its own issuer as having no monetary value and expiring in 6 months. What would change my mind? First, if I have misread clause 4.2.2. If GXS applies the higher tier retroactively across the whole cycle in practice, if a cardholder who spends $1,000 on Grab actually receives 100, then Chapter 2 collapses and I am wrong about the central number. Practice can be more generous than a contract. If a cardholder posts a statement showing otherwise, I will correct this on the record. Second, if GXS republishes the rate table with the non-retroactivity disclosed beside the 10% figure, the misleading headline argument largely goes away. The arithmetic would be unchanged, the disclosure would be fixed. That is a page edit, not a product change. Third, if Grab removed the 6-month expiry on GrabCoins, the currency argument weakens considerably. Grab reserves the right to change that duration, so it could go either way. Fourth, if the beta tag comes off and the rates are confirmed as final, the asymmetry argument in Chapter 6 expires with it. The beta terms let GXS decide when that happens and set no deadline. One thing I would not treat as a rebuttal, that all of this is in the terms and conditions. That is precisely the finding. A document can be complete and a headline can still mislead, and the distance between them is where the money sits. While reading these pages, I found 3 drafting defects. The fee table says the card is for ages 21 to 55. The fine print further down the same page says 21 to 65. Clause 4.2.2 calls the third tier a bonus of 8%. The clause above it and the table beside it both say 7. And the definition of Tier 3 opens by referring to the spend requirements for Tier 2. Small things, but they sit on a live page governing a live credit product at a bank that has told you in writing the product may contain design flaws. Everything here was retrieved on the 21st of August, 2026, from GXS Bank's own website and terms, Grab's own terms of service, and UOB's own product page. I am independent. I have no relationship with GXS Bank, Grab, Singtel, or UOB, and this is analysis, not financial or purchasing advice. Check the dates on anything you read about a rewards program, including this one. These pages change without notice, and the arithmetic changes with them.